If you're going to leave, Ryan, please don't let me wake up alone. Cole's voice was barely more than a whisper, but it was enough to stop Ryan Mitchell's heart for a second. He had heard Cole Bennett say his name 1,000 times over the years. He had heard it across crowded college halls, through late-night phone calls, over cheap takeout dinners, and during countless arguments about which movie they should watch. But he had never heard it like this. Ryan sat beside Cole's hospital bed beneath the soft glow of a fluorescent light, his hand resting carefully over Cole's. The room was quiet except for the gentle rhythm of the monitor beside the bed. Cole was asleep again, his breathing steady, his face calmer than it had been when Ryan first arrived. Ryan looked at him and swallowed hard. A few hours earlier, he had received a phone call that made the entire world seem to stop. Cole had been hurt in an accident. He was safe now, the doctors had said. He needed rest and time to recover. Those words should have been enough to calm Ryan down, but they hadn't. Because for the first time in his life, Ryan had been forced to imagine a world where Cole might not be there. And he hated how quickly that thought had broken him. "You scared me," Ryan whispered, even though Cole couldn't hear him. "You really scared me." He looked down at their hands. Their friendship had always been easy, natural. They had known each other for almost a decade, long enough that silence never felt awkward and apologies were rarely necessary. Cole knew Ryan's coffee order without asking. Ryan knew when Cole was pretending to be fine just by the way he smiled. They had celebrated birthdays together, survived terrible roommates, helped each other through heartbreak, and promised that no matter where life took them, they would always have each other's backs. Ryan had always thought that was what best friends did. You stayed. You showed up. You answered the phone, even at 3 in the morning. You remembered the little things. You were there when the other person couldn't manage everything alone. But sitting beside Cole that night, Ryan wondered if there was something else hiding underneath. All those years of friendship, something he had been too comfortable to notice. His thumb moved slightly across Cole's hand before he quickly pulled it back, almost embarrassed by the tenderness of the gesture. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. "And when you are, I'll probably annoy you every single day until you're sick of me." A faint smile appeared on Cole's face, though his eyes remained closed. "You already do," he murmured. Ryan froze. "You were awake?" Cole opened his eyes slowly. They looked tired, but there was still that familiar warmth Ryan had known for years. "A little." Ryan tried to smile. "You should sleep." Cole looked at him for a moment. "You stayed." It wasn't a question. Ryan nodded. "Of course I stayed." Cole's eyes softened. "You always do." Those 4 words landed somewhere deep inside Ryan. He wanted to make a joke. He wanted to change the subject. Instead, he simply looked at his best friend and realized something that frightened him more than the phone call ever had. He didn't just want Cole to get better. He couldn't imagine his own life without him in it. "Yeah," Ryan said quietly. "I always will." And neither of them knew yet that those words were about to mean something completely different. Before Cole's accident, Ryan had never thought twice about the way they fit into each other's lives. It had always seemed ordinary. Cole was simply Cole, the person who could walk into Ryan's apartment without knocking, steal food from the refrigerator, complain about Ryan's terrible taste in movies, and somehow make even an exhausting Tuesday feel lighter. They had met nearly 10 years earlier, during their first year of college, when Ryan had accidentally taken Cole's seat in a crowded lecture hall. Cole had stared at him for several seconds before saying, "You are sitting in my spot." Ryan had looked around the room and laughed. "There are 200 seats." Cole had shrugged. "And you picked mine." Somehow, that ridiculous conversation had become the beginning of everything. Over the years, their friendship had survived graduation, new jobs, different apartments, failed relationships, family problems, and the countless changes that came with growing older. They had learned each other's habits so completely that sometimes words were unnecessary. Ryan knew Cole hated overly sweet coffee. Cole knew Ryan always forgot to eat when he was stressed. Ryan knew that when Cole became unusually quiet, something was bothering him. Cole knew that when Ryan said, "I am fine," he almost never was. It was comfortable, familiar, safe. That was why Ryan had never questioned it. Until the night in the hospital. After Cole finally fell asleep, Ryan stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. The hospital smelled faintly of coffee and clean linen. Somewhere down the corridor, a nurse spoke softly to a patient. Ryan checked his phone and saw dozens of messages from friends asking about Cole. He answered them one by one, reassuring everyone that Cole was stable and resting. When he finally returned to the room, the lights had been dimmed. Cole was still asleep. Ryan quietly pulled the chair closer to the bed and sat down. He remembered something from years earlier. Cole had once told him, "If I ever end up in a hospital, you better bring me decent coffee." Ryan had laughed at the time and promised he would. The next morning, he kept that promise. He arrived with 2 cups, one for himself and one for Cole, even though the second one would have to wait until Cole was awake. When Cole opened his eyes, his expression softened at the sight of Ryan. "You came back," he said. Ryan frowned. "Of course I came back." Cole looked toward the coffee cup. "You remembered." Ryan smiled. "You think I would forget?" Cole looked at him for a long moment, and something in his expression made Ryan pause. It was not dramatic. It was barely noticeable. Just a quiet warmth behind Cole's tired eyes. "No," Cole said. "You never forget the things that matter to me." Ryan did not know why those words stayed with him for the rest of the day. He helped Cole eat breakfast. He adjusted the pillows when Cole became uncomfortable. He listened while Cole complained about the hospital food and laughed when Cole insisted that the mashed potatoes looked like something from a science experiment. None of it felt like a burden. If anything, Ryan felt strangely grateful to be there. When visiting hours ended, the nurse gently reminded Ryan that he should go home and rest. Ryan looked at Cole. Cole looked back. Neither of them said anything for a moment. "You should go," Cole finally said. "I will be here tomorrow." Ryan nodded. "Definitely." He stood, picked up his jacket, and walked toward the door. Then he stopped. Something inside him told him to look back. Cole was watching him. For one quiet second, neither of them moved. Ryan smiled. Cole smiled back. It was the same simple exchange they had shared hundreds of times before, yet somehow it felt different now. Ryan left the hospital that evening believing he was simply taking care of his best friend. He did not yet understand that every small act of care was bringing him closer to a truth he had spent years overlooking. By the 4th day, Cole was already tired of hearing the words, "Take it easy." Every time a nurse reminded him to rest, he would sigh dramatically and look at Ryan as though Ryan had personally invented the rule. "You are enjoying this," Cole said one afternoon. Ryan looked up from the magazine he was reading. "Enjoying what?" "Watching me be helpless." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You are not helpless. You are recovering." That sounds exactly like something a person who enjoys watching me be helpless would say. Ryan laughed, and for the first time since the accident, the sound felt completely natural. Cole smiled too. It was a small moment, but Ryan held on to it. Over the next several days, Cole improved enough that the doctors began talking about sending him home. The news should have made Ryan happy, and it did, but it also brought a new problem. Cole lived alone in a second-floor apartment, and for a while, managing everything by himself would be difficult. Ryan did not hesitate. "You are staying with me." Cole stared at him. That was not a question. "No, Ryan." "Cole, I have a perfectly good apartment. And 2 flights of stairs." Cole sighed. "I can manage." Ryan folded his arms. "You could barely manage the hospital coffee." Cole gave him an offended look. "That coffee was terrible." "Exactly." A few days later, Cole was sitting in Ryan's living room, surrounded by pillows, blankets, and the strange collection of things Ryan had decided were necessary for recovery. There were bottles of water on the coffee table, medicine organized neatly beside a small clock, and enough snacks to feed an entire family. Cole looked around and smiled. "You turned your apartment into a care facility." Ryan set down a bowl of soup. "You are welcome." "I did not say thank you." "You were going to." Cole picked up the spoon. "I was not." "You were." "You are very annoying. And yet you are still here." Cole looked at him for a second longer than necessary. "Yes," he said quietly. "I am." Life settled into a new rhythm. Ryan went to work during the day and came home as soon as he could. Cole spent his time resting, reading, and slowly rebuilding his strength. They ate dinner together almost every night. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they watched television without saying much at all. Ryan discovered that caring for Cole did not feel like an obligation. It felt strangely familiar, as if he had stepped into a part of their friendship that had always been waiting for them. One evening, Ryan came home carrying a paper bag from Cole's favorite diner. "I brought dinner." Cole looked inside. "You remembered my order." Ryan smiled. "I always remember your order." Cole became quiet. "You remember everything." Ryan set the food on the table. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." Cole. Cole looked down at the container in his hands. You remember how I take my coffee? You know which movies I hate. You know I cannot sleep if the room is completely dark. You even remembered that I wanted pie tonight. Ryan smiled. That is what best friends do. Cole looked at him with a softness Ryan could not quite understand. Maybe. The word lingered between them. Ryan tried to laugh it away, but something had shifted. Later that night, they sat on opposite ends of the couch watching an old comedy they had both seen too many times. Halfway through, Cole fell asleep. Ryan lowered the volume and glanced over. Cole looked peaceful, his head resting against the cushion, one hand loosely holding the edge of the blanket. Ryan quietly pulled the blanket higher over his shoulders. He stopped for a moment, watching him. There was nothing unusual about caring for someone you loved as a friend. At least, that was what Ryan told himself. But as he sat there in the warm glow of the television, he realized he had started noticing things he had never noticed before. The way Cole smiled in his sleep, the little crease between his eyebrows when he was thinking, the quiet sound of his laughter even after the joke had ended. Ryan looked away and reached for the remote. Get a grip, he whispered to himself. Cole was his best friend. That was all. It had always been that simple. Except now, for the first time, Ryan was no longer completely sure it was. The weeks that followed changed something between them, though neither Ryan nor Cole was willing to name it. Cole was getting stronger every day. He could walk around the apartment without needing Ryan nearby, prepare simple meals, and even return to some of his old routines. Ryan should have been relieved. Instead, he found himself strangely unsettled by every sign of Cole becoming independent again. One Saturday morning, Ryan woke to the sound of music coming from the kitchen. He walked out and found Cole standing at the counter, carefully preparing breakfast. Ryan stopped in the doorway. What are you doing? Cole turned around with a grin. Making breakfast. You were supposed to be resting. I have been resting for weeks. Your doctor said you should take things slowly. Cole pointed toward the stove. I am moving at the speed of a sleepy turtle. Ryan tried not to laugh. That is not a medical measurement. It should be. Ryan walked into the kitchen and reached for the pan. Let me help. Cole gently moved it away. No, Ryan blinked. No. You have been doing everything for me. Today, I am making breakfast for you. Something about the simple statement caught Ryan off guard. He stepped back and watched as Cole carefully prepared scrambled eggs and toast. It was not perfect. The toast was slightly too dark, and Cole forgot the salt, but Ryan ate every bite. Well, Cole asked. Ryan nodded seriously. Best breakfast I have ever had. Cole laughed. You are lying. Absolutely. They both laughed, and for a moment, everything felt like it had before. Then Ryan noticed the difference. Cole was no longer simply receiving care. He was giving it back. That afternoon, Cole decided he wanted to go outside. They walked slowly through the neighborhood, taking their time. The autumn air was cool, and the sidewalks were scattered with red and gold leaves. Cole stopped near a small park and looked at the children playing nearby. I missed this, he said. Ryan stood beside him. Being outside. Feeling normal. Ryan looked at him. You were getting there. Cole smiled. Because you stayed. Ryan looked away. Anyone would have stayed. No, Cole said softly. Not anyone. They continued walking. Ryan wanted to answer, but the words would not come. Later that evening, Cole sat on the couch while Ryan prepared tea. When Ryan returned, he found Cole staring at an old photograph on the coffee table. It was a picture of them from college, both laughing at something outside the frame. We looked so young, Cole said. Ryan sat beside him. We were young. Do you remember that day? Of course. You had just failed your driving test. Ryan laughed. I did not fail. The examiner simply misunderstood my technique. You hit a traffic cone. It was an aggressive cone. Cole laughed so hard that he had to hold his side. Ryan smiled, but when the laughter faded, Cole looked at the photograph again. I was scared, he said quietly. Ryan's smile disappeared. About what? Everything. Cole looked down at his hands. After the accident, I kept thinking about how quickly everything can change. One minute you think you know what your life will look like, and the next minute you are wondering what comes next. Ryan listened without interrupting. I was afraid I would never get back to the person I used to be, Cole continued. I was afraid people would get tired of waiting for me. Ryan's voice softened. I never got tired of waiting. Cole looked at him. Why? Ryan opened his mouth, then stopped. There were 100 easy answers. Because you are my best friend. Because that is what friends do. Because I promised. but none of them felt complete anymore. "Because you matter to me," Ryan finally said. Cole held his gaze. "How much?" Ryan's heart began beating faster. He looked toward the window, where the last light of evening was fading over the street. "More than I know how to explain." Cole did not push him for an answer. Instead, he smiled gently and leaned back against the couch. "That is enough for now." Ryan looked at him and felt something settle quietly inside his chest. He still did not understand what was happening between them, but he was beginning to understand one thing. Cole was healing, but Ryan was changing too. And somehow, the closer Cole came to standing on his own again, the harder it became for Ryan to imagine letting him go. The question stayed with Ryan long after Cole had gone to sleep. How much? He had heard it before, but never from Cole, never in that quiet voice that made a simple question feel like something much bigger. Ryan had spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, trying to find an answer that would fit neatly into the comfortable definition of friendship. He could not. The next morning, Cole seemed completely normal. He made coffee, complained about the weather, and spent 20 minutes looking for his phone before realizing it was in his hand. Ryan laughed at him, grateful for the familiar routine. But something had changed inside him. Every time Cole smiled, Ryan noticed. Every time their hands accidentally brushed while reaching for the same thing, Ryan became suddenly aware of the moment. He told himself it was because Cole was still recovering. He told himself he was simply protective. He told himself a lot of things. None of them lasted very long. A week later, Cole received good news from his doctor. His recovery was progressing well, and he could gradually return to his normal routine. He would still need to be careful, but he no longer needed someone watching over him all the time. When Cole came home, he was smiling. "I can go back to work next month." Ryan smiled too. "That is great." Cole looked at him. "You sound disappointed." "I am not disappointed." "You are." "I am happy for you." Cole studied his face. "Then why do you look like someone just canceled your favorite show?" Ryan laughed awkwardly. "I am just tired." Cole nodded, but he did not look convinced. That evening, they ordered pizza and sat at the kitchen table. The apartment was warm and quiet. Cole took a slice and looked across at Ryan. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan smiled. "You usually do." Cole hesitated. "What would you do if I was not your best friend?" Ryan stopped chewing. "What kind of question is that?" "Just answer it." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "I do not know." Cole looked down at his plate. "Would you still choose me?" Ryan stared at him. The question seemed simple, but it carried something neither of them was saying aloud. "Choose you for what?" Ryan asked. Cole shrugged. "Anything. As a friend. As someone you trust. As someone you want in your life." Ryan's chest tightened. "Of course I would." Cole looked up. "Even if I did not need your help anymore?" Ryan was silent. That was the part he had been avoiding. Cole did not need him in the same way anymore. Soon, he would return to work. He would have his own schedule again. He would spend more time outside the apartment. Their old routine would slowly return. Ryan should have been excited about that. Instead, the thought made him strangely sad. "You never needed me to stay," Ryan finally said. "I stayed because I wanted to." Cole's expression softened. "Why?" Ryan looked at him. For a moment, he almost said it. "Because I love you." The words appeared in his mind with startling clarity. They felt frightening, but they also felt true. Ryan looked away. "Because you are my best friend." Cole smiled faintly, but there was something bittersweet in it. "Right." The rest of dinner passed quietly. Later, Ryan found Cole standing near the window, watching the lights of the neighborhood. "You okay?" Ryan asked. Cole nodded. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "Us." Ryan's heart skipped. Cole turned toward him. "We have known each other for almost 10 years. We have changed jobs, moved apartments, dated other people, and somehow always ended up back here." Ryan smiled. "That sounds about right." Cole took a slow breath. "Do you ever wonder if there is a reason?" Ryan did not answer. Cole stepped closer, but stopped with enough space between them to keep the moment gentle. "Sometimes I think the person you are supposed to find is not always a stranger. Sometimes they are already standing beside you, and you are just too afraid to look at them differently." Ryan felt the room become strangely quiet. He knew what Cole was asking without hearing the words. And for the first time, Ryan allowed himself to ask the same question. What if this was not a new feeling? What if he had been loving Cole in pieces for years, hidden inside every shared meal, every late-night conversation, every promise to stay? Ryan looked into Cole's eyes, and neither of them spoke. They did not need to. Something had finally been acknowledged. even if neither was ready to give it a name. The silence between them lasted only a few seconds, but to Ryan it felt like an entire evening. Cole was still standing near the window, his expression calm, but his eyes were searching Ryan's face for an answer. Ryan wanted to say something meaningful. Instead, the only thing that came out was, "You should get some sleep." Cole's expression changed immediately. Not anger, not disappointment, just understanding. "Right," he said quietly. "Good night, Ryan." He walked toward the hallway, and Ryan watched him disappear into the guest room. The moment the door closed, Ryan sat down at the kitchen table and covered his face with both hands. He had never been good at complicated feelings. Friendship was simple. Love was supposed to be something else, something that arrived with certainty. Yet now the person he trusted most had made him question everything he thought he understood. The next morning, Ryan woke to rain tapping against the windows. The apartment was unusually quiet. He found Cole in the kitchen, standing beside the coffee maker. "Good morning," Cole said. Ryan smiled carefully. "Morning." For a few minutes, they moved around each other without saying much. Then the lights flickered. A few seconds later, the apartment went dark. Cole laughed softly. Perfect timing. Ryan found a flashlight and placed it on the counter. Outside, rain continued to fall, turning the neighborhood into a blur of gray streets and glowing windows. Without television or phones, there was nowhere for either of them to hide from the conversation they had avoided. They sat together at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of warm tea between them. Cole finally broke the silence. "I scared you last night." Ryan looked at him. "A little. I did not mean to." "I know." Cole traced a finger along the edge of his mug. "I just wanted to know if you ever thought about us differently." Ryan took a slow breath. "I have." Cole looked up. "Since when?" Ryan almost laughed. "I do not know. Maybe since the hospital." Cole's expression softened. "Me too." The rain grew louder against the windows. Ryan stared down at his hands. "That scares me." "Why?" "Because you are my best friend." Cole smiled sadly. "I know. And if we get this wrong, I could lose you." Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Ryan, you almost lost me without either of us choosing it. I do not want to spend the rest of my life pretending I do not feel something just because we are afraid of what might happen." Ryan looked at him. There was no pressure in Cole's expression, only honesty. "I do not know what this means," Ryan admitted. "Neither do I. What if everything changes?" Everything already changed. Those words stayed between them. Ryan slowly reached across the table. Cole looked at his hand, then placed his own hand over it. The simple touch felt different from every touch they had shared before. Not because it was dramatic, but because neither of them was pretending anymore. Ryan looked into Cole's eyes. "I do not want to lose you." Cole's voice was barely above a whisper. "Then do not." Ryan leaned closer, stopping just long enough to give Cole the chance to move away. Cole did not. Their first kiss was gentle and brief, almost uncertain, as though both of them were afraid to disturb something fragile. When they pulled apart, neither spoke. Cole gave a nervous little laugh. "Well." Ryan smiled despite himself. "Well." For a few seconds, they simply looked at each other. Then Ryan's smile faded. Fear returned, quiet but familiar. "What if this ruins everything?" Cole's eyes softened. "Then we will figure it out together." Ryan wanted to believe him. He really did. But as the rain continued outside, he could not shake the feeling that they had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. And although neither of them knew what would happen next, Ryan already understood one thing. He had spent weeks learning how to help Cole find his way back to normal. Now he had to learn how to face a future where normal no longer existed. For the next few days, Ryan tried to convince himself that the kiss had changed nothing. He went to work, answered emails, came home at the usual time, and acted as though he and Cole had simply shared another quiet moment between 2 best friends. But every time their eyes met, the memory returned. Cole did not bring it up either. That silence somehow made everything harder. One evening, Ryan came home expecting to find Cole on the couch. Instead, the apartment was quiet. Cole was standing in the kitchen, carefully packing a few things into a small overnight bag. Ryan stopped in the doorway. "What are you doing?" Cole looked up. "I am going home." Ryan felt his stomach drop. "Home? My apartment." Cole tried to smile. "I think it is time." Ryan set his keys on the counter. "You are not ready to be completely on your own. I can manage." "Cole." "Ryan." The familiar exchange suddenly felt different. Cole closed the bag and took a slow breath. I have been staying here because I needed help. I needed you. But I do not want you to feel responsible for me anymore. That is not what this is about. Then what is it about? Ryan opened his mouth, but no answer came. Cole waited. You kissed me, he said quietly. And then you have spent 3 days pretending it never happened. Ryan looked away. I am trying to understand what I am doing. You are afraid. Ryan nodded. Yes. Cole's expression softened. Of me. Of losing you. Cole looked down. Ryan. You are already pushing me away. The words hurt because they were true. Ryan had been so focused on protecting their friendship that he had forgotten friendship also required honesty. I do not know how to do this, he admitted. Neither do I. What if we try and everything falls apart? Cole gave a small, sad smile. What if we do not try and spend the rest of our lives wondering? Ryan had no answer. Cole picked up his bag. I love you, Ryan. Ryan looked at him, stunned. Cole's voice remained calm, but his eyes were full of emotion. I have loved you for longer than I knew what to call it. Maybe I was afraid too. Maybe I thought if I said it, I would lose the best friend I had ever had. Ryan felt his chest tighten. Why did you never tell me? Because I thought you would leave. Ryan shook his head. I would never leave you. You are doing it right now. Ryan looked toward the door. Cole was standing there with his bag, and suddenly the apartment felt enormous. Every ordinary memory rushed through Ryan's mind. The coffee in the mornings, the late dinners, the terrible movies, the hospital chair, the quiet conversations, the way Cole had trusted him when he was afraid. Ryan realized he had been measuring every decision by the possibility of losing Cole, while ignoring the possibility of losing him by doing nothing. Wait, Ryan said. Cole stopped. Ryan stepped forward. I need to tell you something. Cole turned around. What? Ryan took a breath. You are right. I am afraid. I am terrified that if we try this and it does not work, I will lose my best friend. Cole listened quietly. But I am more afraid of waking up one day and realizing I let the person I love walk out because I was too scared to be honest. Cole's eyes softened. Ryan continued, his voice unsteady. I do not want to pretend that kiss did not happen. I do not want to pretend I do not think about you differently now. And I do not want you to leave because you think I only stayed because you needed help. Cole slowly put the bag down. Then why did you stay? Ryan looked directly at him. Because you are you. Because every time something happens, you are the first person I want to tell. Because when you are happy, I feel lighter. When you are hurting, I cannot ignore it. And because somewhere along the way you stopped being just my best friend. Cole's eyes filled with quiet emotion. What am I now? Ryan smiled through the uncertainty. I think you are the person I am finally brave enough to love. For the first time in days, neither of them looked away. For a few seconds, neither Ryan nor Cole moved. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the rain beginning to fade outside. Cole looked at Ryan as though he was trying to make sure he had heard him correctly. You really mean that? He asked. Ryan nodded. I do. Cole let out a slow breath, and the tension in his shoulders finally eased. Then I do not want to run away. Ryan smiled. Good. Cole glanced at the bag beside him. I suppose I should unpack. Ryan laughed softly. That might be a good idea. Cole picked up the bag, but before he could turn away, Ryan reached for his hand. This time, neither of them hesitated. Their fingers intertwined naturally, almost like they had been doing it for years. In a way, they had. They simply had not understood what the gesture meant. The next morning felt different, even though almost nothing had changed. Ryan still made coffee. Cole still complained that Ryan used too much cream. They still argued over what to watch on television. Yet underneath every familiar routine was a new understanding. They were no longer pretending that their feelings did not exist. They were learning how to make room for them. Cole's recovery continued steadily. He began returning to work a little at a time, and Ryan slowly stopped worrying every time Cole left the apartment. That was harder than he expected. For weeks, Ryan had measured his days by Cole's needs. Now he had to remember that caring for someone did not mean constantly watching over them. Sometimes it meant trusting them enough to let them walk forward on their own. One evening, Cole came home from work carrying a small paper bag. I brought something. Ryan looked up from the kitchen table. What is it? Cole placed the bag in front of him. Inside was a slice of apple pie from the diner they used to visit in college. Ryan smiled. You remembered. Cole shrugged. I always remember the things that matter to you. Ryan looked at him for a moment. Those words sounded familiar. They were the same words Cole had once used about him. Ryan smiled. You are getting good at this. At what? Making me emotional. Cole laughed. I am still learning. They sat together at the table and shared the pie. It was a simple evening, but Ryan realized that was what he wanted. He did not need grand promises or dramatic moments. He wanted mornings with Cole, quiet dinners, silly arguments, grocery store trips, and ordinary days that felt meaningful simply because they were together. A few weeks later, Cole returned to the park where they had walked during his recovery. The trees had changed with the season, and the air was cooler now. Ryan stood beside him as they watched the leaves move across the grass. Do you remember this place? Cole asked. Of course. I was scared that day. Ryan nodded. I know. Cole looked at him. I am not scared anymore. Ryan smiled. Neither am I. Cole reached for his hand. You know what is funny? What? For years, I thought becoming your boyfriend meant I might lose my best friend. Ryan laughed. And? Cole squeezed his hand. Turns out I got both. Ryan looked at him, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the weather. You always were stubborn. You love that about me. Ryan smiled. I do. They continued walking slowly through the park, side by side. Ryan thought about the hospital room, the sleepless nights, the uncertainty, and the fear that had once made him want to protect their friendship at any cost. Now he understood that love had not destroyed what they had built. It had revealed how strong it already was. Cole was no longer the person Ryan needed to protect every moment. Ryan was no longer afraid that his feelings would take something away from them. They were simply two people choosing each other, one ordinary day at a time. And for Ryan, that was more than enough. Months later, Ryan still remembered the night everything changed. Not because of one dramatic moment, but because of all the small moments that came after it. Cole had fully returned to his normal routine, and Ryan had finally stopped watching him with the worried expression he once could not hide. Their apartment no longer felt like a temporary place where Cole was recovering. It felt like home. On a quiet Saturday morning, Ryan stood in the kitchen making coffee while Cole searched through the refrigerator. We are out of milk, Cole announced. Ryan looked over. You said that yesterday, and you did nothing about it. You were supposed to buy it. Cole closed the refrigerator. I thought you were going to. Ryan laughed. This is why we need a grocery list. Cole walked over and leaned against the counter. You know, we survived almost 10 years without one. We also survived almost 10 years without knowing how terrible you are at planning meals. Cole smiled. And you still love me. Ryan paused for half a second. Unfortunately, Cole laughed and reached for his coffee. Their mornings had become simple again, but they were no longer the same. There was more honesty between them now, more patience, more moments when they could sit together without needing to fill every silence. Sometimes Ryan still thought about the hospital. He remembered the dim room, the chair beside Cole's bed, and the fear that had made him realize how much Cole meant to him. He remembered telling himself that he was only staying because Cole needed him. Now he understood that the truth had always been much simpler. He had stayed because he loved him. Later that afternoon, they drove to the same park where they had walked during Cole's recovery. The weather was bright and cool, and the trees were beginning to turn gold again. They found a bench overlooking the walking path and sat together. It has been almost a year, Cole said. Ryan nodded. Almost. Cole smiled. A lot has changed. Ryan looked at him. Everything changed. Do you ever wish we had figured this out sooner? Ryan thought about it. Sometimes. Cole raised an eyebrow. Only sometimes. Okay. Often. They laughed. Then Ryan looked toward the park and remembered how uncertain he had felt the first time they came there. Cole had been afraid of returning to normal. Ryan had been afraid of losing him. Neither of them had understood that they were standing at the beginning of something new. If you could go back, Cole asked, would you change that night? Ryan knew exactly which night he meant. The night of the hospital. The night he realized how deeply he cared. He shook his head. No, Cole smiled. Not even a little? No. I would change how scared I was. I would tell you the truth sooner. But I would not change what brought us here. Cole rested his hand beside Ryan's. Ryan reached for it. Their fingers intertwined. You know what the nurse asked me that first night? Ryan said. Cole smiled. No, she asked if I was your boyfriend. Cole laughed softly. And you said no. I said I was your best friend. Cole looked at him. You were. Ryan smiled. I still am. Cole's expression became warm. Good. Ryan looked into his eyes. But now I can say both. Cole squeezed his hand. Best friend and boyfriend? Exactly. They sat quietly for a while, watching people walk through the park. Children laughed in the distance. Someone walked a dog along the path. Leaves moved gently in the afternoon breeze. Nothing extraordinary was happening, and somehow that made the moment perfect. Ryan had once believed love would arrive as something dramatic, something impossible to miss. Instead, it had been hiding inside years of friendship. It had been there in shared meals, late-night conversations, remembered coffee orders, quiet promises, and the simple decision to stay. Caring for Cole had not taught Ryan how to save someone. It had taught him how to recognize what was already worth holding on to. Cole leaned closer and smiled. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan looked at him. "How lucky I am." Cole smiled. "That is a good answer." Ryan laughed. "It is the honest one." They stood and began walking home together, their hands still joined. The road ahead was not guaranteed to be perfect. There would be difficult days, ordinary disagreements, unexpected changes, and moments when either of them would feel uncertain again. But Ryan no longer feared those things. He had learned that love was not about promising that nothing would ever change. It was about choosing each other when life did. And as the evening light settled over the neighborhood, Ryan realized that the person he once called only his best friend had become something even more precious. Cole was still his best friend. He was still the person Ryan laughed with, trusted, and told everything to. But now he was also the person Ryan had chosen to build an ordinary life with. Sometimes the greatest love story did not begin with a stranger walking into your life. Sometimes it began with the person who had been standing beside you all along, waiting for you to finally see him differently.